So welcome. This is what's new for desktop developers for our quarter two or second quarter release of 2011. Got lots of exciting stuff to talk about. Thank you for joining us. Let me give you a little introduction about who I am. My name is Phil Chapixie, and if you've been working with the Winforms for a while, you probably haven't heard my name. I've been floating around some other products as well. But I am the Patterns and Practices Evangelist for Telerik. It's mostly a community-based role, so I go around evangelizing, guess what, patterns and practices and development techniques and things like that to lots of user groups and community events as well as to bigger conferences. I am a Microsoft MVP in client application development that does cover Winforms and WPF. I do run a user group here in my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I still do a lot of developing. Obviously a lot of speaking, and I do writing as well. You can reach me on my blog at skimedic.com/blog. And you can also reach me on Twitter at skimedic. A lot of people ask me why I use the online name of skimedic. For those in the States, if you look at my last name, it tends to get misspelled a lot. So I picked up skimedic as a domain quite a while ago because I volunteer for the National Ski Patrol. It's one of my hobbies, and I also work part-time as a firefighter paramedic. And skimedic just seems to be easier to spell for people, unless you come from a database background, and people tend to think of schematic. And you know, you can't win for losing sometimes with the spelling of the names. But that's who I am. Just a quick review of where we are this week. We've had a jam-packed week of webinars already. So we've Monday and Tuesday, we had the overview Windows Phone. Tuesday, web developers that covered Ajax and MVC. Telerik Test Studio, a very, very good feature-packed demo yesterday on the Test Studio and what's new in that. This morning, what's new for XAML in Silverlight and WPF. And then here we are, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, what's new for desktop developers. But we're not done yet. Tomorrow, we've got 3 webinars, count them 3. What's new for productivity tools? That's going to cover all the Just products like Just Code and Just Mock and Just Trace and Just Decompile. At noon, we're going to talk about TeamPulse R2, what's coming new in that beta release. Now, TeamPulse itself is out already and been out for a while. This is the beta of the R2 release. And then in 2 p.m. in the afternoon, we're going to do an introduction to the Sitefinity e-commerce piece that we're really proud of being able to incorporate. And then Friday, we've got all hands on deck, putting it all together. It's going to start at 11 o'clock. I know it looks like it's going to last for 3 hours. It's not. It's an hour. It just, to fit on the slide, we crossed it all the different times. And as a reminder, 2 reminders, all times are Eastern. And the webinars are all recorded and will be available on tv.telerik.com as soon as we can get the encoding right and get it all uploaded. So I'm new at the encoding part. I'm hoping to have this all uploaded by tonight, but it might take a couple days for me to get this webinar up, but it'll all definitely be up by the weekend. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, I want to give a little recap of what's new in quarter 1 2011. The last webinar, if you were able to watch it, was fairly packed. The quarter 1 release had Windows, Forms, WPF, Silverlight, and Windows Phone 7 all thrown together in one webinar. So I don't feel that the quarter 1 release got all the loving that it should. So we're going to do just a recap of what's new in that and what excites me as a desktop developer. And then certainly why we're all here today, what's new in quarter 2 of 2011. And then, time willing, we will get to as many of your questions as we can. So, quarter 1 2011, what was new in that? One thing I want to say is I've spent the last many years of my career doing mostly WPF. I did a very large amount of Windows Forms development or Winforms development over the years and kind of migrated away from that and did a lot of WPF in the recent years. And I was asked to help out with this webinar and started looking at Windows Forms again and the RAD controls for Windows Forms, and I hadn't looked at them yet. We've got so many tools at Telerik, it's hard to get a handle on everything. And if you are new to Windows development, or if you're doing Winforms now and you're contemplating using our controls, I tell you what, using our controls made it fun to play with Windows Forms again. I had kind of adopted that WPF mentality, and didn't really want to look forward to going back to Windows Forms. But my hat is completely off to the development team and all the guys who work on the WinForm controls, because they've done an awesome job of making it really fun to work with Windows Forms again. I had a lot of fun building these samples that we're going to be showing you today. So that's my little soapbox speech. We'll go ahead and move on to the content. So we got some enhanced controls. As always, we always try and fix up some things that we've had that we maybe didn't get completely done the way we wanted to, or had some new late breaking ideas, and we have some new controls. So the big deal about the RAD tree view is we completely rewrote it, re-engineered completely. This is going to make it much faster. We get built-in filtering, we get custom nodes and editors. Robert did a great demo of this on the last webinar, so I'm going to show you some of the data binding goodness that got me excited about this control, but it is completely re-engineered. Again, this is for quarter one. When we look at the scheduler, a couple big deals. Inline editors. So you don't have to write your own editor. This comes out of the box. You want to make a new appointment, it's all inline. And it's also going to remember the logical states for each view. So as users can flip back and forth, it will help remember where it is without a bunch of custom code. So that's the RAD scheduler. When we look at the ribbon bar, the ribbon bar is really, really powerful. And it really helps us with that new Office paradigm that people are used to seeing, right? It's one of the cues that we always take as desktop developers is, what is Microsoft Office doing? Since it's so widely used, there's so many people that expect that type of paradigm. And one of the nice things that came in, especially Outlook, is the backstage view, where I click on here. I don't have an icon, I just have file. It completely replaces the user interface with a bunch of custom information. So this is where you can hide a whole lot of things like configuration or save options. You get a whole bunch more real estate. This is actually an adorner that sits on top of your normal window or form, and we'll show you that in the code as well. The RAD grid view. There's I've got two grids shown on this slide, and it looks like the audience is catching up on the view. What's new in quarter one is the mixed hierarchy mode, and that's on the left side. This is where we've got a hierarchy of entities, in this case folders. And at the end of this hierarchy, we've got some documents, and you can see that we are actually showing just a straight old tree view, and then the hierarchy data, or the master detail data, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure if my mouse will actually show up, but my mouse is pointing on, here's the mixed part of the mode. And that's really cool, and we can also export these hierarchies. I'm going to show you what really got me stoked about the RAD grid is I've got an object graph from an e-commerce site, a little sample e-commerce site, iBuySpy. You might be familiar with that. And I'm going to show you that with just very few lines of code, you can have a completely hierarchical data view in a matter of seconds. And that just really got me excited, so I wanted to point that out. So let's look at some code. Alright, so let's run this app. Alright, so the red border around this is because I am working in, I've got VMware running, and if you look, I'm actually running in integrated mode, so it changes the UI a little bit, or user interface. So pull up a tree view. I have also, with these forms, and this code will all be available off my blog by the end of the week. We'll also make it available on the Windows Forms blogs on Telerik.com. I'll work with Nikolai on that to make sure that we get the data up there. I played with some different themes because that was some of the other stuff that was new in Q1 and also new in Q2. We got some new themes. But this is just a straight hierarchical tree view. And if you've ever worked with building your own tree view from data, it's a lot of adding nodes and adding tags and things like that. And it can be a little unpleasant in straight Windows Forms development. And I just remember all the unhappy times I spent trying to get those to work just right. What we have now is some really awesome data binding. Here is the code to bind it. Categories is I'm using Open Access, which is an ORM that is free to use against any version of SQL Server except for SQL in the cloud. So I've got Open Access, which allows me to do link queries against a context. It's very similar to Entity Framework in that sense. And so I've got categories. Categories have products. Products have reviews. So my data source for the tree view is the categories list. The display member, this is how we build the hierarchy. So basically we're saying first level is category name, second level is model name, third level is rating. And this will apply to the members, categories, products, and views. Products is a property. It's an iList off of categories. Reviews is an iList off of products. This code down here in the code behind is just allows us to let me pull this back up. Just shows as we change the node right here, I'm just changing some context here, and it just shows you the eventing capable of every time that a node changes. You can certainly get those values and do with it as you want. And as you watch, we'll wait for the audience view to catch up. As I move with my cursor as well, the selected node is changing. So it's very, very sensitive to those change events, and you don't have to worry about whether they clicked it or used their mouse or hotkeys or things like that. So just a super powerful control. So let's look at the scheduler. And again, Robert did a great demo on a lot of these, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but if you haven't seen our scheduler yet, there I can just create a new appointment, foo, location, my house. We can change the background, right? We'll make it important. It's busy. It's going to be an hour. We can set recurrences and things like that. And again, this is out-of-the-box support for you. So the ribbon bar, this form takes a little bit to load because a lot going on. This is actually going to be a demo that we're going to show later. And here we have just a traditional ribbon bar where we've got different things we can do. And in here we've got some content here in the middle. And then when I click on the Backstage View button, or the File tab in this case, this really isn't just another tab of controls on the ribbon bar. This is a whole new user interface where I have all these different options. Of course, I clicked on it, it's going to prompt me to do stuff now. And then the grid view, I want to do a little bit of navigation in this. So here we have our mixed hierarchical view, right, where there's a file. All right, so now we can go down here and we can say, oh look, there's some files, so there's our mixed view. And that's brand new. On the right side, we've had this support for quite some time. But you can see here that it's got all the hierarchy we could ever want. I go down into this product down here, and I just let it set to default category, or the default columns. This is totally customizable. So just because I have no graphic skills doesn't mean that you can't do some really slick stuff with this very easily. For example, you could show, and it's very WPF-like actually with the capabilities that we've added to Windows Forms. You could actually have, you know, when a row is selected, show the picture and stuff like that. And I'm showing more the geek side of it. So let's look at the control for the scheduler. And you know what? I'm going to shut down this app just so it's a little more responsive. And there's really nothing to show in the scheduler because that's just native to the control. So let's look at, first of all, the right side of the grid where I have the hierarchical data source. No customization, right? So you get what you get. You get all those fields and everything else. But here's the code, right? I create a new context. I get my category. I list. Assign that to the data source. I say auto-generate the hierarchy. It will walk your object graph for you and build all those relations right into the table. It's truly just awesome sauce in my book. So that's the right side. The hierarchical or the mixed hierarchy mode, there's a little bit more work involved in that, and really the reason there's more work involved is because Nikolai did a great job of making it look nice. He actually wrote this sample for me. He's on the webinar, but didn't want to have a speaking voice, so you won't hear him today, but he's certainly keeping me in check. So what we have here at the core of it, and I'm going to skip past all of the make it look pretty stuff, because again, you can look at this, you'll be able to download it and play with it. We've got a data set with folders and files, and we have relations set up where a folder can have files, and the folder is self-referencing to itself, so it'll have a parent ID. Obviously at the root you don't have a parent ID, and then there's the same code, pretty much the same code we saw before. Data source is the data set, the data member is folders. That's actually the start of the object graph, if you want to call it that with a data set, but it's certainly the start of the hierarchy. And again, we use that auto-generate hierarchy term, and it will generate that hierarchy for us. The rest of the code, and there's a lot of code in here, this is all making it pretty. And that's really what we're doing here is assigning nice looking folders and images and things like that, whereas on the right side I just threw it together and it doesn't look pretty. So that's the bulk of the code, is showing how to customize the layout and the formatting. But again, to get that data bound hierarchy, we're really looking at 3 lines of code. Alright, so that is, let me just check my notes, make sure I didn't miss anything. Nope. Okay, so those are the updated controls. I don't see any questions up there yet. So let's look at the new controls. There's 2 new controls that we introduced in Q1. One is, and again this pink border is due to Unity mode that I'm running in. So we have a wizard control, and it's fully customizable. So what you'll see is the first time through, we will say hide it. Now I have eventing, so when I click on the next button, if they have not selected thing 1 or thing 2, then it will prompt them. Also, I have a little checkbox here that says show events. So the next button was clicked. You can catch that and cancel by setting the event handler cancel to true, and it won't do the next. There's also full help support, so you can catch when it helped, and then there is the previous. This is the arrow design. So with the standard design, it'll look a little different, but the same concept. And you can have whatever content you want in here. So we'll do, oh, let's get rid of this. Yeah, look at that. We're showing way too many events. So thing 1 will have green eggs and ham, and then we have green eggs and ham. And then we finish. Now if you remember, we go back here, we say hide this welcome page. We go to finish, and now we're going to start it again, and the welcome page is not there. So we can customize that and remember what it is. And then as we tab through, the progress bar is only set for 3 states, 0, 1, and 2, as opposed to 4, which we had before. The other thing that we have is a rad separator, and I had made a really cheesy looking form to demo it and realized that the perfect demo is right here on the screen. The rad separator gives us a control that we can put other controls into, so it's a container control essentially that has this nice separator line between it, and you can customize it in an infinite number of ways. You can change the width, you can have a shadow. It's actually 2 lines, you can make them offset. So here I have one with the vertical layout, and it contains 2 other separator controls, and those separator controls are set for a horizontal layout. So we have that nice little separation in our user interface. So let's look at the wizard code. It's thinking. I have a lot of stuff going on my machine right now, so the little hamsters are turning the wheels really hard. So here's our wizard. This is our welcome page. You can see right in the user interface as we click next and previous, it goes through the separate pages. As with all the rad controls, we get the little editing arrow there, and we can add pages, we can edit the pages, we can remove pages, so we can do all kinds of different things there. We can show and hide this graphic as well. And if we look at the code is very, very simple. So I have used welcome page is a dependency I inject into this form. It's a Boolean, obviously defaults to false, but the first time through it's going to use it. So then I just change where we start, and I change the progress bar. So a lot of code here that probably could be optimized. Again, it's a demo code, but then here's what we really care about, is the ability to capture all these events. So when they click the next button, you have full access to what page they are on. So if they are on page 1, which is actually the second page, right, 0 and then 1, we have, if neither of these are checked, here's a validation, so we can add full validation into it. If we want to show the events, right, then we actually show the event, and we can set cancel to true if we want. And so all those events, the help, the next, the previous, the cancel, the finish, all those are available and cancelable as well. So very, very powerful. The progress bar is not built into it. Neither is this text box or the checkbox down here with show events. I added the progress bar just to show what you can do with the different events and whatnot. So that's the rad wizard control. I'm really wishing I had that a couple years ago. And then let's get back into the PowerPoint. Alright, so we just looked at the code for this. I charged ahead in code. I tend to do that, and I'm not always fond of PowerPoints, but I know we have to make them. So the rad wizard, step-by-step processes. You can do the arrow or the standard design. And then the rad separator, again, for visual separation and controls. It just adds that nice little professional touch to your controls. We've already seen that demo. The other big deal that we introduced in Q1 and we continue to improve support on in Q2 is the Microsoft Active Accessibility Guidelines or standards. We are the first compliant third-party suite out there. We have support for Windows Narrator and UI automation and testing. I know Robert did a great job of demoing this on the last webinar. So if you need more information about this, please go look at the recorded webinar and look at what's going on and get the sample code from that. And then, of course, we continually extend the localization and right to left support. That's what RTL is. Sometimes we have a little too many TLAs or 3-letter acronyms, but you know, that's what happens when geeks get together, right? We throw down all the acronyms. 3 new themes were brought out with the Q1 release, and we've got a big theme to announce with Q2. But another thing that really kind of ties it all together is the theme viewer application that we shipped. And let me just pull that up. And the theme viewer allows us to look at the themes that are out there and how all the controls. Let's look at the desert theme. And we can look at the items in the containers, the scheduler, the dock. And so this does a couple of things for us, right? Shows a new list view, which I want to show you later in a couple slides. This allows us to look at the themes. And I think I was flipping around too fast. I apologize. I'm waiting for the audience view to catch up here. It allows us to not only look at the different theme options, but also gives us kind of an overview of some of the rad controls, right? What does the scheduler do? Well, here's some different views we can do on the scheduler, right? So it's also a nice little showcase sample app to look at our controls. So I would keep that in mind. All right, so the reason most of you are on this call is what's new in this quarter. What kind of awesome stuff are we bringing for you? Well, as always, we got to make the stuff we already have better. We can't just sit on our backsides and assume that everything is perfect. So with the Rad Masked Edit Box, easy for me to say, completely re-engineered. Again, just like some of the Q1 controls. We've added some additional masks, IP addresses, email, and the ability to do custom regular expressions, or regexes. We've got much better design time support. We've got much improved customization, and we have support for nulls. The Rad Date Time Picker, again, completely re-engineered. Added support for null values, better design time support. Can you see the theme here? We're thinking about you guys and not just what it looks like. We want to make these controls the easiest to use so your apps can look the best and you guys get all the glory. Much easier navigation between text parts in the date time mask. And now we accept dates smaller than 1/1/1753 because sometimes you've got an application that needs to know when. I can't even think of a good historical thing that happened before 1753 off the top of my head. When Columbus sailed the ocean blue. There we go, going back to my old elementary school days. We've also improved the Rad waiting bar. We've improved the user experience, makes it look nicer. We've got animations enhanced for all four directions, whether you're doing left, right, bottom, or top. And we got two new styles, the Throbber and the Dash. And lastly, in our list of updates, is we have added a Rad expression editor into the grid view. Now, we've added this in two different places. So not only can you do this in design time, but your users can do this as well. And they can add their own expressions in there. I know what you're thinking. You don't always want your users to be able to add expressions, and that's totally fine. You can disable that function with a very simple property. We've also updated the grid view to utilize the new and improved, improved that is just going to be my nemesis today, isn't it? Rad Masked Edit Box and Rad Date Time Picker. So let's look at these guys in code. We're going to run this app again. And we'll make sure that the audience view is caught up, and it is. Now, I originally had ordered these differently. So I'm going to ask you guys to ignore this control at the bottom because I haven't announced it yet. You guys probably know what it is. It's our new property grid. But I thought the best way to really show the updated controls, the masked edit box and the date time picker and the waiting bar, was to create a form where you guys could play with the different properties at runtime And that's what the property grid allows us to do, and we'll see more of that. But if we look at the different mask types here, you can see that we have, it's catching up now, email, IP, regular expressions, plus the standard numeric date, time, and things like that. And we have IP, look at the text. I don't have Zoom it running right now, but we got the 3 dots in place. The date time picker supports complete customization of styles as well as some easier navigation and design time support. So let me click on this button, Customize. That just throws some really crazy looking styles on it, and you can see we've completely restyled it. And then we'll look at that code in just a minute. And let's animate this, the waiting bar. So that kind of looks like the barbershop thing. Let's go down here, get the properties loaded for the waiting bar. This does take a little bit to run. Keep in mind I'm running this application in a VM in Unity mode, plus recording with Camtasia and GoToMeeting and broadcasting to several hundred people. So it takes a little bit, and it's here. And let's look at, I don't have the full property grid here, so I have to remember where it is. Waiting style, dash. So that was the dash. Indeterminate. Right? We get the little bar. But my favorite is Throbber, also known as the Cylon Eye. So what application wouldn't be complete without a Cylon Eye? We've got to have that. It's pretty much what every geek that I know, including myself, uses as an animation until the graphic designers come in and do something different. But certainly that is several new options that we have. These are all stylable, as you can see with the style viewer. So those are those updated controls. Let's look at the expression builder in the grid. And again, I just have a very simple grid going against the products table in my database, again using open access to do this. And I right click on the header, I say click on expression, and now I can say the column price, I want 4 times the price to be the expression. We look at the data as it is now. Whoops. So you see that top row is about 3,000. Say OK. Now when the screen updates, you'll see it's 5,000. So in real time, it updates the data so they can write their own expressions. And this is nice, right? Because you're thinking about, well, how would I use this? Well, a lot of times you get those requests from users to modify your application or to change your report, and they don't really know what they want to see, and as users kind of tinker with it for a while, which means you have to tinker with it for a while until they finally make up their mind on what they want to see. And it's not their fault, right? They're trying to figure out what it is that they want. Well, now you can give them a grid with that data with several of these columns in it that they can change the expressions themselves, and they can tinker with it all day long. And then when they get it to the point where they know that's what they want, then you can certainly incorporate that into your application and save yourself some development cycles. So that's the grid. Let's look at the code. With the updated controls, there's not a whole lot to look at in code. We really saw from the properties what there was to do. So we will go to the grid view, and a couple things I want to show you here is, again, let's look at the code. This just makes me happy. Set up my context, set my data source to my products table, and then I can have the hierarchy as well. I auto-generate it. In this demo I didn't need to. And then we look at the properties for, I know I'm clicking a little fast, I will get there, and when I get to where I need to be, I will, oh no, I lost it. Awesome. hold on, this is what we would call an edit point in the recording. Let's go alphabetical. So the one question I see while I'm looking for this property, which I thought was named columns, and it is columns, look at that. Would it be possible to limit which expressions are exposed, assigned to roles or user rights? Yes, because the ability to change the expression is a Boolean property on the column. Enable expression editor right there. And I gotta remember that you guys take some time to catch up. And there's the expression that I do in design time. So by disabling the expression editor, the user would not be able to do it. This is certainly something you could do with, for example, an extender provider that Billy Hollis talked about, about 8 years ago in Winforms, and I have got some information on my blog about that, I believe, where you can, based on roles or properties, you can change properties. Certainly, however you get there, the question is, the answer is yes, you can limit it, but it's going to be done through code. What about an IP6 mask? You'd have to do it with a regular expression at this time. We've got a regular IP mask in there now. So that is, let me go back to my notes, make sure I didn't forget something I wanted to say. Alright, and let's get to some of the new stuff. Alright, can I easily bind a RAD grid view to WCF data services? I am going to say I believe so. I don't honestly know the answer. I can't think of why we wouldn't want to do that, but I will tell you that I don't do a lot of work with WCF, so we're going to have to hold that question and see towards the end. I can get some of the product team to help me answer that. All right, let's get back into what is new. So, list view. Now, if you saw any of the stuff that we did for TechEd, we had a demo app or a reference application that we wrote for TechEd. We being the company, I was not involved in it personally, that showcased some of the stuff that we can do with these new controls and our rendering capabilities that again make things look very XAML-like, even though you're dealing with WinForms. So the list view is one of those items. Now, I'm a geek and not a designer, so I have, as evidenced by the image you see on the screen, a very rudimentary design, but we do now support touch scrolling. We've got the simple view, the icon view, and the detail views. So one of our little samples that we have that you can look at the samples, and the samples are downloadable for free. You can replicate, Windows File Explorer. Do you need to replicate Windows File Explorer? Probably not for most jobs, but sometimes you do. But anyway, it's just a good paradigm that developers understand, and we show you how you can replicate it, because there are times when you might need some of that functionality just like it. But certainly, whatever your list is, you can edit, you can filter, you can sort, and you can group. And if you look at my sample here, I'm grouping by category name, right, and then showing all the products in those categories. And then this is sorted actually descending, right? So I've got travel before tools and so on and so forth. So that's one of the big deals. Next, we have the property grid. Now, I showed you a little sneak peek of this. This allows you to throw into your user interface the ability for your customers to start customizing things and to take some of that lifting off of your shoulders, right? If they want to have a certain look and feel of their application, they can start tweaking it. You've got filtering capabilities, sorting and grouping. We've got the ability to hide properties, change labels, all this other stuff, and error validation built in. So now I'm not suggesting you have all your users become software developers, but since you can hide properties, you can expose or just not hide the ones you want, like for color, back color. You know, if you want to make a skinnable application, for example, and you want them to be able to make those changes, you can expose the property grid and not have to write your own. We've got, you know, again, as with all these controls, we've got full documentation supporting them. In an hour, I can't possibly cover everything you can do with these controls, but they are certainly very, very nice. Now, here's the coup de grace, right? The rad rich text box. This is in beta. It hasn't been fully released, so you know there might be some quirks, and if there are quirks, certainly let us know what those quirks are, and we will get them resolved very, very quickly. But this is, you know, we're trying to get, not trying, we are getting the rich text box into all of our delivery platforms, whether it's Silverlight, WPF, Winforms, etc., etc. So this is all the capabilities of a full-featured document editor in your application, compatible with docx, SAML, HTML, RTF, text, and also ability to save out as PDF. Spell checking built in. Tons of features that I just couldn't put on a slide because you guys wouldn't have been able to read it, and I wouldn't want to read it out loud to you. One note, this does require .NET 4. This will not work in any of the earlier versions of .NET. So let's look at these guys in code. And I'm looking at my timer. We're about 42 minutes into it, so we are tracking well from a timing perspective. All right, so the list view. So here we have just a regular list view, and you can see we can do checkbox. We can also do radio buttons. We got samples for all that stuff. Here's the icon view, and then here is a details view going against a data source. Again, this is my iBuySpy database. You can add support for when they click on this to do different sorting, etc., etc. So all different kinds of lists. Certainly you can do it much more fancier. That was great English. You can certainly make much fancier lists as well. It just requires some design skills, which I don't have. But actually it doesn't even require that many design skills. We've got plenty of samples out there that will help you do it. So this little property grid shows here we've got the theme. I can do it either by, there's alphabetical, there's category. I can do a search. There's my cursor. I click on that, and let me make sure that the audience view has caught up. It has. And if you look down here, we've got the help section at all as well, which we can size. So very comfortable, familiar feeling for us developers. Certainly something that your users could get used to. And then based on what you click on this demo, it'll load the properties. Just a word of warning, switching the selected object behind the property grid does take a little bit of time, especially on my poor little laptop that is just cranking a lot of things right now. So that's the property grid. Alright, so here we have the rich text box. Now, I will give you a heads up. Let me make it, again, I had to change the resolution way down for this webinar, so I'm not used to working in that resolution. For now, as it's in beta, the text box, the rad rich text box, is only the white part of the screen that has the content. The way this form is made, excuse me, I had to sneeze, sorry about that. The way this form is made is we have a ribbon bar with the backstage view set up, with all the different features. But as of this webinar, you have to do that. However, we ship a sample application that is this form. So we give you all the work already done to make this nice ribbon bar. So Nikolai and the guys on the product team have done a great job of providing not only me but all of you with wonderful samples to look at. So how does this thing work? Well, we can do all kinds of things that different to text. We can change the color. We can change the font size. We'll make that big, bold, and underline, and then we will save it. And you know what? I'm actually going to save it out on my main hard drive. And we'll call it foo.doc, and I already have one out there, so yes, I'm going to replace it. So that's what we've done. We've made some changes to it. Let's go out here to foo.doc, and we're going to open it. Now this is on my main machine, not in my virtual machine. I'm using, as you can tell, well, it hasn't caught up yet. The user interface or the audience view hasn't caught up yet. When it catches up, you can see I have Word loaded. You can see all the ugly changes that I made in the text box, the rad-rich text box in my application. Let's right align this. Let's make some other changes. We're going to center those. We'll make this really tiny. Alright. So we are going to save this again. It is saved. Now I could have set up a file system watcher to watch, but I didn't. Ran out of time. I looked at it. So here's where we are now. Let's do a file open. And we are going to pick foo.doc. And when the user interface catches up, or the audience view catches up for GoToMeeting, you will see there are all the changes. Edit something in your Visual Studio, .NET project, save it as a docx file, open it in Word, make changes, save it as a docx file, and you can open it right back into your application. So, think of the capabilities of, you've got an online support system, or you've got a call, a call room, folks who, a call center is the word I'm trying to find, and they want to take notes, right? Instead of just taking text notes on a call, you get all the power of Microsoft Word built into your application without doing Word automation. And for those of you who've done Office automation, it's not terribly fun. Doable, certainly doable, but we give you all that power built right in your application by dragging a control over. So, absolutely awesome to do that. So let's go back to the code, get some of these things added away. We've got 11 minutes. We're going to finish right on time and be able to get to some questions. So the list view, the 3 different list views, again, we're just changing how they look. So here I am in this. For the one on the bottom, I am actually doing a projection with link, creating a new object, and if you look, it's a new anonymous object that I am binding to right into my list view. So it doesn't even have to be a predefined object. The rich text box, a lot of code behind this form. a lot going on. It's just the power of what you can do with the text. So let me just scroll down to right. So on the text box itself, we have undo and redo built in. So we got the commanding cut, copy, right? All those built into it, paste, focus, make bold, whatever the selection is, those types of things. What we lack right now is, on Mac hookup, but all that power is in your application. Again, if you go to your start menu, programs, Telerik, rag controls for Winforms Quarter 2, there is a Telerik editor sample in there that has all this in there. It's a standalone one form, one user control project that has all this stuff in it. I've just incorporated it into this other demo so you guys could have it in one place. All right. Last but not least, we have a Metro theme for Windows Forms. So it follows the Metro UI style. This is the first Metro theme for Telerik Windows Forms controls. Comes in Telerik Green, and it's available for all of the WinForm controls. I have a little sample that we could demo this with. Honestly, the best way to demo the Metro theme is to look at it in the theme viewer, because I realized that my sample was kind of weak. And this is just much more complete. So let's look at the general purpose. So there's the Metro theme, right? Very much follows along the Metro guidelines. We can show them when they're disabled, input controls, whatnot. Just to show you the difference, there's Metro, and there's Breeze. Don't think it's caught up yet. Audience view. Yep. So we'll go back to Metro here. And the only thing really that I will show you with the demo is how easy it is to use the themes. So we go to Solution Explorer. Let's pull up the Metro theme demo. Again, mine's kind of silly. I've got a scheduler, date control, and a property grid. But you go over to your toolbox. You scroll down to the theme section. I'll wait for my view to catch up. I think it's there. I pick Metro theme. I drag it over. Now my form has a theme. I go to the solution. I go to the properties. And I select the theme name of Telerik Metro. And it's that simple to apply a theme. All right, so how do you figure all this stuff out? How do you get to the point of, on that slide, you say, yes, I'm an expert? Well, everything really starts at Telerik.com. We have Telerik TV. We've got a lot of videos on Winforms out there. Winform is a big product used by lots of people. We've got lots of content out there for you to look at. So tv.telerik.com. Online demos, demos.telerik.com. And online docs at telerik.com/help. But really, if you just go to www.telerik.com, go to products, go to Winforms. On the Winforms page, you have links to all of this stuff. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at telerik.com/support. So we are giving away. Ooh, it's not. There we go. Waiting for the screen to catch up. We are giving away a Telerik Ultimate Collection, valued at, I believe, $19.99, and that is with a comma and not a decimal. Well, okay, if you're in America, with a comma and not a decimal. If you're in Europe, anyway, you know. $1,999 US dollars is going to be drawn from all of you guys who participated on this webinar. We will post those names on Facebook and Twitter within 24 hours. So if we have your Twitter handle, we got the registration, we'll send it also at reply you on Twitter if you are a Twitterite. So, just to recap, where are we now? We're just finishing up what's new for desktop developers. Thank you for being on the line. We will go through your questions here shortly. Tomorrow, jam-packed day, 11 a.m. What's new in the productivity tools? Just code, just mock, just decompile, and just trace. 12 o'clock. What's new in Team Pulse R2 2011? That's the beta of the R2 release. Like I said, Team Pulse has been out for a while now. This is just a beta of the newest rev. 2 p.m. Eastern. Introduction to Sitefinity, the e-commerce module that we're very, very proud of. And then Friday, all hands on deck, putting it all together. You get to see all this stuff working together in action. And then to download this, go to Telerik.com to get the latest version. What I am going to do is I'm actually going to back up, and I'm going to put my, I meant to put this at the end as well, I'm going to put my bio slide up, because that has my contact information on it. Again, I'm at Schematic, or www.schematic.com/blog. There's my blog. My email at Telerik, which I realize isn't up here, is easy, phil@telerik.com. And while you guys are looking at that, I'm going to start answering questions to the best of my ability. Some of these questions we're going to have to offload and have some of the product team help me with. So I'm going to just answer them out loud so everybody gets the benefit. Can I describe which of these new features are or are not compatible with Visual Studio 2008? Alright, so hopefully Nikolai will correct me if I am wrong, but everything that does not require .NET 4 will work with 2008. In other words, you are out of luck with the RAD text box, or the RAD rich text box if you're using 2008. Okay. We've got a few questions, so I'm just going in order. I'm not going to waste your ass time by hunting and pecking. So here's a question. As evidenced in Q1, there were significant changes in the architecture of the RAD grid. Are there any anticipated changes with the task list data source, namely finding visible rows? So, anticipated, no. With the Q1, we did call out some breaking changes that we were aware of. So we are not anticipating any breaking changes with this release. But again, I strongly encourage you to look closely at the more detailed what's new document that's available off of the Winforms site on Telerik.com. And look for that for sure. And if I am incorrect, then I'm sure Nikolai will ping me here and correct me. Can the Cylon Eye be configured to be read with the appropriate sound effects? I'm sure it can. Thank you, Lance. To be read with the appropriate sound effects. Yes, actually, it does support theming. So you can make the Cylon Eye red, and then you just have to play the sound effects with you. Alan, thank you for answering. The RAD grid works fine with WCF data services. That was my expectation. Thank you for calling that out for me. So again, another question on backwards compatibility and breaking changes. My understanding, and I've spent quite a bit of time with the team on this, I didn't ask them that exact question, but looking in the documents of the what's new and whatnot, I didn't notice any breaking changes between Q1 and Q2. My recommendation, if you have a large amount of code, I would certainly just reach out to Telerik.com/support or support@telerik.com and say, I'm using these controls, you know, are there any breaking changes? But again, I believe all that stuff's documented very, very well in the what's new. When grouping in the list view, is it possible to suppress the column containing the data which is being grouped by? Yes. I just had it showing because I'm silly that way. Thank you, Marianne, for saying Gesundheit. Fortunately, I have a headset where I can flip up the microphone and it goes to mute, so I don't have to fumble around to find the mute button on GoToWebinar. Website is the future or WPF applications? Well, that's a huge conversation that probably is beyond the scope of this. The fact of the matter is there are a lot of Windows Forms applications still out in the wild, still in production, and I don't see those getting rewritten anytime soon in another technology, whether it is the web or WPF. So what we are doing our best to do, and I think we're succeeding very well, is to make your life that much better dealing with Windows Forms applications. They were around for a very long time and very successful. They still, it's a viable technology. It's not going away. Microsoft has never said we're going to write some software that's going to delete every Windows Forms application off of your Windows machine. We're dealing with existing applications, and we are continually striving and, like I said, I think succeeding in making those applications easier to work with, better for the users, and just a better experience all around, and again, helping you deliver more than expected. What dictionary is being used for the spell check? Is it custom or do you reference Microsoft Office? That's a great question that I don't know the answer for. Hopefully Nikolai will jump on here and answer that for me. Nikolai has a bunch of answers here. So, are there any changes in Q1 2011 in RadGrid View? No. RadGrid View works with WCF. Yep. When will the samples be available? I am hoping they will be available by the end of the week at the very latest. Maybe even tomorrow. But I was up very late making sure all these things work. So as soon as I get done here, I am going to sign off and go take my kids to an amusement park. So, I think that was all the questions that we have. Nikolai is saying, I think we use our own dictionary that does not require Office. So we believe we're using our own dictionary. Again, I didn't research that. I apologize for not having that answer off the top of my head. But that's a lot of content to cover in an hour to do it. So I have 3:03 Eastern Time. That means that we are at the end of this broadcast. Is multi-column header for grid view going to be implemented soon? Nikolai, I'm going to have you answer that. Is multi-column header for grid view going to be implemented soon? I don't know the answer to that. Hopefully Nikolai will jump on here and give me an answer. Again, you can reach me at Schematic on Twitter, phil@telerik.com. This webinar will be published at the latest Monday. I'm hoping to get it sooner. I will have these code samples and the PowerPoint deck on my blog by Friday at the latest. We'll also get them pushed into the Telerik.com Winform blog as well. Nikolai says we do have multi-column headers. They're already in the samples that come with the grid view. So my apologies for not knowing that. So anyway, that's it. Thank you for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, we are giving away an Ultimate Collection license. We will announce that within 24 hours on Facebook and on Twitter. So my suggestion to you would be glued to Facebook to make sure you win that. I believe we will email you as well. I'm just not entirely sure what that process is. So anyway, that's what I have. I appreciate you coming. Keep working, and check out the rest of the webinars this week. And you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you very much.